I'm going to clear. And well, I'm going to leave Jacob in because Jacob is, of course, he is the founder of the Just Chatting, of bringing BOM culture to StreamYard. And yeah, so I go away and you guys start, fulfilling Jacob's vision of the 24-hour network. What's with that?
Yeah. Well, first off, we need to give, and I think we start with Jacob. Jacob was the genesis of this whole Just Chatting thing. And he's been continuing it on his channel in all sorts of different forms, Bible studies, everything else. So Jacob is continuing the yeoman work. And I also want to make sure we get our affirmation out to Luke Thompson. So he started the first live stream on Thursday, which kicked off the first 15 and a half hour live stream. And, it was fun. The thing was, Paul, is like that people just kept coming, right? So I'm like, okay, we'll keep it open. And Sherry played a massive role because she was spinning yarn, and so she had a lot of time, and so she was able to carry it. And once it got to ludicrous levels, I just like to do things like that. At some point, it was a challenge, and I'm like, we're going to keep this thing going. And it was a TLC world record. We checked. It's a TLC world record live stream. But and a lot of people, which is interesting, Paul, is people were starting to point to something was happening. And they were pointing to something like an Asbury sort of a thing. I don't know. But there was something that was going on. And one of the things I've really noticed, Paul, is, and Luke starting this year kind of got some energy going too. There's been a wave that kind of started with Waves of Sessions and other lurkers to Christian Bactors to Pete's or whatever. But there also has been a hunger from a lot more lurkers who have wanted to participate in these Just Chattings. There's a Just Chattings. There's a wave that's going on. And the other thing, Hezi came in, which was really interesting, Paul, which is you need to keep things moving here. But because of the length and the time, it really kind of allowed people to chew on some things, get some things out, have a little more that crate. And once people realized we were settling into a very long thing, and there were, there was probably a couple, 3 hours in a row. It might have been pretty boring and whatever. It was just not. But then these moments would break out, and people would share their stories, and there were some beautiful things that started to happen. So it was organic and it was fun. But I also think it's speaking a bit to there's some sort of a wave happening, Paul, where people are getting energized and wanting to communicate that I'm noticing.
I think that's Jacob. We have to give you a lot of credit for this. I think early on you saw the hunger for this.
It did come out of the studio. I mean, I just saw that there are enough lurkers that Discord wasn't able to allow the lurkers to completely lurk the way they want to. And yeah, my whole thing is I don't think this corner is large enough for all the people who want to come in. And I get very, very upset at the people who don't even want to accommodate all the people coming in. And we get that a lot. People are like, you'll ruin it if you bring more people in.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting because the Chicago group, when Sam was talking about when you have on your channel, when they were talking about estuary, and the Chicago group isn't an estuary, and because that's what happened with my Jordan Peterson meetup, is we got to a point and some of the regulars were like, we don't really want new people. And I thought, well, okay, you guys, you can continue to meet in your own homes. I'm not going to tell you not to meet with your friends, but part of me is you have to keep that empty chair there. And you have to, because once you sort of close it, it begins to die. And you have to sort of, it's chaos and order. You have to figure out how to maintain that balance. And you always do that. Optimal grip is always about sort of opponent processing, but doing this.
Paul, it's not just the fact that it would die. It would die in the sense that it is choosing sin. It really is. To be so selfish. Like, one thing Garth said to me that really has stuck with me is the people who are most passionate about this little corner are the people who have seen the power of community and want to see it again and see it available, right? And I'm sorry, like, it drives me insane when people are like, "This is good. Let's just keep it to ourselves." It's like, where's the messianism?
Well, that's it. And like Chad shares this poem all the time. That's called "I Keep My Hand on the Door," right? And so I understand it was really awesome when it was. I'm just gonna say this: all the small little cool kids had their little thing and nobody knew about it, and that's fun. But then it changed, and it has changed, so we can't go back, right? And I do think it is important to kind of keep the hand on the door. I would give a shout out for the Bridges of Meaning voice chat channels. Tayo, David B, Tunji, Joy has been showing. Mandy, they're carrying the weight over there. They're there a lot of times. Let's just say United States Central Time between 7 a.m. to like noon or 1. So that, and people are sticking around there more. So that's cool to see that vehicle happen. And it's kind of the same thing. Like, listen, we're still, Paul, the beautiful thing is like, you don't have enough people following you yet that it's not exploding things too much down here.
Right.
So
right.
There's almost a cap on, and that's good, right? Like, it's not anything we can't handle. And so I'm not even nervous about that. But this also kind of feeds in a little bit to this whole CRC thing. What do you expect if you evangelize and you bring in lots of Koreans and Latinos? Eventually, if you're good evangelizers and you grow your church, it's no longer going to be Dutch. What were you expecting to happen?
I know, and that's the irony of this thing, that the groups that were just we're beating ourselves up because we're so Dutch. Okay, well, now the Koreans and the Hispanics, and they're all at the table and they have a voice at the table, and you don't like what they're saying? You know, it's like, this is what you asked for. Just, you know, okay, you might not like it, but that's the whole business of, we want to give other people leadership. Well, they've got it now. So yeah. Alex, you jumped in on this, and you've been sort of a newbie in this, and you've been on the channel. So what say you?
So yeah, this happened pretty much by accident, I suppose. So I'll make the long story short. A few months back, maybe a year back, I was, you know, as I was prowling, lurking the internet, I did see Girl Country on there, and it just happened to be that the discussion that was going on caught my attention, because it had to do with Christianity, but it had to do with not closer to what I was looking for. You know, I want to hear sound doctrine, and I know that means a lot to different people, but for the long story short, and I liked what I heard, so I'm like, I'm going to subscribe, right? And then that was it, because, you know, my attention span led me somewhere else, and before you know it, I was just lurking other channels, whatnot. But then what showed up on my feed later on, months, was a Stranger Theology by Pete, because it's the same kind of feel to it, and it caught my attention. And I'm like, what is he saying? So I subscribed, right? And that was that. Like I said, I was still watching the stuff that I used to watch before. And then I started watching a little bit more, just here and there. And this just happened just not too long ago, where I was working in a backyard, and Pete from Strange Theology, he was mentioned some stuff about the symbolism and Exodus, and he wanted to, I don't know, he said a comment to like the viewers, and I never really comment. So he said something, so I'm like, I'll comment, right? And that I was not expecting to get a reply. So that's like, what? He's replying? And even then I think he invited Christian Baxter, and he wanted to do a sound check, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can hear you guys. And anyways, I just felt like I've been listening to this guy, and I like what he's saying, and he actually responded to. I mean, I'm just a random stranger out of nowhere, you know. And anyways, one day I see this live stream, and I'm like, I like what they're saying, and for the first time, I don't know. Don't ask me why. For the first time ever, I actually noticed that little click, the little link to join. I don't know why, I've never seen it before, and it just happened to be that day. I'm like, I wonder if I should click on it. And before you know it, there's this huge thing that's going on forever and ever. So it didn't matter when I logged on; it was there. So I'm like, I guess I'll click it, and I found this community where people can have different opinions, and they don't get. It's very cordial, and the people are patient, and nobody. It's like no animosity, no disrespect, and it's like that's what you expect to hear from people that are following after the same master, same Lord. And I just found it so very unique, and it was just by happenstance. It just one thing led to the other, and I had never actually clicked on a comment, hardly ever, and never once when it was live, and never once did I expect for the person to actually reply. And I'm like, this what? This is just not. It's just, anyways. I just found that so strange, but in a good way. In a good way.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Alex. Well, I'm glad you clicked on, and I'm glad you keep clicking on. And here's one of our leaders here, the bib overalls. I'm gonna have to get you you and Herb Shear, the bib overall guy at Synod. I'm gonna have him on the channel soon. But
I think Herb's is authentic in his overalls, Paul.
He sent me, after Clay made that comment about it, he sent me an email. He says, I have 6 pair of these. I wear them all the time. It's like sort of like saying Chad the alcoholic is his pro felicity is the bib overall. No, that's just Chad. That is just Chad. So what say you, Chad? Or are you just gonna can't talk now? Oh, he's going out to the car. So no, and it's
Chad's been live streaming in the mornings, which is great. He's doing he's sharing his morning routine a little bit, and people are jumping in. Christian every now and again is live streaming. You're starting to see that buck up.
We could be served by another level of organization where there's and one of our smart coders among us should be able to, there should be sort of like a directory where you can go to a link and, okay, YouTube is doing that to a degree because the live streamers go up to the top, but it would be nice to know, okay, a lot of times we do it when we have found time.
Well, so, Ryan has thislittlecorner.com, which is the only official listing of the channel.
No, I think you're right, Paul. Just an AI algo notification anytime someone's coming, you figure out which channel's going live. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, welcome, Alex, and I'm all for the doors being open. I'm all for it. The thing is, and I think it will be, but I'm not concerned about growth at all. I think the topics are way too niche. It's super steep slope. So in order to stay, you have to play in a sense, even if it's lurking. Lurking is a type of play. And like, other than that, I don't see it. It's so unlikely for it to be flooded. That's why it's not like, I don't think it is exactly like Senius, because like Peterson is a Senius problem. Like, so we're downstream from Peterson's Senius problem.
Yeah.
But we don't have, we have, and our co-felicity is very steep. And so good luck with that. It's hard enough to sometimes, like, if you're, I don't imagine a lot of folks are like I am, where I kind of like, I can get my feathers ruffled enough. It's hard enough to really love this place and keep and stay sometimes. It's hard enough to do that if you care too much. So
well, you do have that sphincter issue.
I do. I do, and in my, and so it's helped me out with a lot of things. But man, boy, do I think it's really a beautiful thing. But I'm not worried about growth at all, at all.
Yeah.
And
I'm really not either, because for all the reasons you named. Now, at the same time, Jacob does have a pretty big spot in my consciousness Congress, and his issues, even though while I'll often resist him, his issues are important, and he is right that I often think too small, and I'm often not sufficiently ambitious. And and people will write me emails sometime and ask me, why do you tolerate Jacob? And I say, well, I love Jacob, and I believe his heart is in the right place. And even if I disagree with him on issues and we have big fights over whether or not I'm the leader of the TLC, et cetera, I hardly even dare mention that.
Yeah.
But
but Paul, there is some.
It's not like I am saying free for all. I'm the guy. I'm the hierarchy boundaries guy, right? And so that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is always you have to leave that empty chair.
So
100%, always, yeah.
The one thing I think that would be really wise of us, and I've floated these past you for couple of years now, Paul, is it's good to look at the history of other organizations that are similar but different and gain the wisdom that they have. And I think like AA isn't just seeing this thing either. There's a weird reason why it still sticks around, mostly because it's still effective.
Yeah, and it's still also needed.
Right, but it only stays because the care that is being participated in at the individual level.
Yeah.
And so, that sort of thing only really happens by sharing, so I'm talking specifically about traditions and stuff. And I don't know how if we were to decide to move forward in some way and create those kinds of things, I don't know how that would happen, but it's going to boil down to somebody's just going to have to get off their ass and do it, because nobody wants to do it.
Well, but here's the deal. See, there are things growing up. Listen, Paul, you're a bottleneck, right? And you know this.
Yep.
And so what's happened? The estuary folks are out there organizing some things, getting some things going. Jacob's got the fountains of comfort. The one critique, what you just shared here, which is you know what? I probably could spend a little more time thinking a little bit about some slight organization. But we are in such an infancy stage. Organically, this stuff is growing up. But Chad, the thing that I think what's really beautiful about here, like you mentioned, it's hard to stick around sometimes because sometimes the conversation goes at an annoying level, like the hive mind gets picked into something and annoys you or whatever. But that's what going to a church is. The people drive you crazy. And you can just pick up and leave whatever, but you just got to stick around through the messiness if you really care about something. So that's actually, it models community, because that's what happens. You get annoyed by people and you want to storm off, but you love it so much you stick around.
Yeah. Mark, what say you?
Sorry, I'm back again, Paul. I apologize.
That's okay.
But William, wrong denomination. William Branch and I kind of stumbled into something where for me it was helpful in that it's basically we made connections in the comments a few months ago, and then we started the talk offline, and it's triggered in me a thought that which answered lots of questions. It helped me kind of get into kind of connect into the stream a little more easily by having somebody kind of help me along in the process, both processing and conversation, my own experience, and integrating what I'm experiencing with the corner. And it just seems to me like you could break through the bottleneck in terms of numbers through that kind of mechanism where you might have a layer of low-level leadership that just assign interested newbies to little short-term mentors or whatever you want to call them, on-rampers or whatever you want to, we come up with some clever name. You guys are all good at that. And
That's a good idea.
just plug to help plug and get them rolling. Then once they're rolling, then it gets much more relaxed. And I also have a new friend, right? I mean, that's basically with William.
Yeah, we don't have
And-
sponsors here, which is a big.
Well, but see, here's what I'd
Sponsor,
say. We do have on-rampers. Like Tayo is serving a big on-ramping role. Like those are the people who are keeping the Bridges of Meaning Discord voice chats open. That's an on-ramp. Having the just chatting is a bit of an on-ramp. I think one of the things that this is like, unless you're willing to work a little bit to get into this little corner, you probably don't want to hang around this little corner. They're you know what I'm
Lance,
talking about? Like it takes a little work. No, I agree with you, Mark. Like we do this, but I do think some of the slight difficulty to on-ramp almost shows kind of the personality type and the interest of the types of things that go on
for
here.
men, can I just say for men that does? I think for women on the internet have a whole different level of experience, and it may not have to, and their reticence may not have to do with their being extroverted or introverted. That sexual harassment on the interwebs is for real, and it's a good reason why we probably have, maybe we're only 10% or 15% women. We might see, and I thought like one of the best things that was Paul's women's only live stream he did. We could use more of that. But I'm just saying, I'm not disagreeing with anything you said. I just think that for people who need plugged in, but maybe don't, who could benefit from local estuary, who are following the videos and the live stream somewhat, and maybe even commenting once in a while, but don't go on to the Hollywood
I
Squares.
think I'm picking up some of these comments over here from the women. I don't know if they're agreeing with you. She said, like Mandy says, it's more
I
of an
don't see
interest
them.
problem.
Sorry.
I think the biggest issue, and Jacob pointed this out, I can't remember on one of your live streams, some of the biggest thing, particularly, it's an introvert extrovert problem. Like trying to find a way to invite introverts in. It's you talk about a steep slope, like but that's why they can lurk and listen. And even like you can come into BOM voice chats and you can just listen. You don't have to jump in and participate. But eventually, once an introvert gets comfortable, I would do that. The one thing I would say, which is, and I spend a lot of time in the BOM and on here, what I do love is maybe in one, or I only think of one instance, is that and again, until a woman comes in to check it, there's been no sort of sexual, like that whole like woman shows up sort of stuff weird stuff can happen. I think this has been cultivated a pretty safe place for people.
This is. I agree. This is. Yeah.
On my Discord, I have designated female mods, and if you want women to be comfortable in a space, you have to create women-only spaces. Mm-hmm. If you have to be deliberate about,
my wife would say the same thing, Jacob.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Anyways, that was my thing, Paul. And the only other thought I had too was that we have another potential. I'm a newbie here, so it's just thoughts I'm experiencing. Is that we have another potential bottleneck in the possibility of is cross-pollination a threat, particularly to we have the possibility of cross-pollination between Christian denominations. That is, people jumping from Pentecostal to CRC or from Catholic to
why is that a threat?
Baptist. That's what well, it's not. It's not a threat to Christians, but let me expand that out. We've got Jews and then potentially Muslims and potentially others that aren't within the Christian faith. And that one question, it's an open question in my mind, is that a threat in Jacob's mind? Is that a concern, or is it more like, bring it on? I'll definitely net more converts than you, kind of thing. I don't know. I don't know if that's an issue at all. And I mean that somewhat tongue in cheek, Jacob, but you know what I'm saying? Is that an issue or a possible?
Well, I have always
the community.
I have always been a liminal figure here, and I can only be a liminal figure here because that is what my religion tells me to be, right? So I have no designs on proselytizing and To the degree that I am actually proselytizing, I am doing something wrong. So I am perfectly happy, and in fact, I have demanded that this be the Christian space that it is. I would like a pew where the Jews are allowed to sit. And frankly, even if there is, at some point, you guys decide Jews are not welcome, that's, hey, it's happened before, Paul.
Very good point. It's a strong point. Although we should say that you guys kicked us out first, so
actually, we can talk about that.
There you go.
If that's what happened. But so when it comes down to it, look, my God is the God of truth. I'm doing my work. I'm doing what I need to do to help bring the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven, right? And like what shape that takes is not up to me. The consequences of my love for God, the fruits of my belief in God are up to God. And whatever those fruits are, that's what I have to accept. And that's not Calvinism, Paul.
Here we go.
Oh, okay,
I do
what if we
want
had?
to say one thing for the spirit of Sherry to be here. One of the things Sherry said, this issue came up, and she was like, I don't want a women's only space because she hates categories and so on and so forth. And so that was what that is what Sherry kind of would have said. And at least on the Grail country, Sherry has a very powerful voice in the Grail country, bringing that matriarchal spirit. And now we're in the TLC marathons, right? And the other thing that she does so well is helping us to see things, but also Sherry will very directly disagree with you in a very nice way, but she does not hold back. And there's lots of strong women in our group. I love them, and they're over here in the chats right now, and like Laura and others. And so, but Paul, you try to bring that out as much as possible, because you want them to know that they're welcome.
And the TLC has always been a space like Estuary where, it is very strongly Christian, but we really try to hold the space open for people who are not Christian. And that, to me, once that space gets closed, I probably will leave because this Estuary is church adjacent. It's not, and we need various spaces for different kinds of things. So, David, what say you?
Hello.
Hello.
I just thought it was kind of funny that Jacob said the most Calvinist thing imaginable and then said, and that's not Calvinism. He just said, no, it's not up to me. It's entirely up to God who brings about the fruits. And I'm like, oh, yeah. You're quoting Paul right now, right?
Fruits. I make the choice because God has given me the choice, and the fruits are up to God, not whether or not I choose to do right or wrong. That is completely up to me.
Yeah. Well,
just keep thinking that, Jacob.
Jacob, I wonder what your thoughts are, because regardless of who kicked out who and all that business about the initial, I know that to some extent we're not entirely welcome anymore at synagogue. And so I wonder, Paul, what you were saying about the importance of this space, I think is I need a place where I can have conversations with heretics, for lack of a better term.
Yep.
And I think, Jacob, you've benefited from that as well, where this is, you need us good heretics to set you in the right direction.
So I have to say, a Beit Midrash is a real thing in the Jewish community. You can go to a Chabad house and find heretics like me on a constant basis. The one thing I explain to Protestants all the time is, if you go to a synagogue on a regular basis, at least once a month, somebody will yell back at the rabbi during his sermon.
Yes,
Really?
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
One time, my rabbi was going on for too long, and this old man just shouted out, "What's the bottom line, Rabbi? What's the bottom line?" Like, he was just so irritated that it was going on.
Beyond that, people will disagree with the rabbi during his sermon. Like, imagine that happening in a Protestant church.
Yes, I want it so bad. It's yeah. It's
just
definitely
leave
something that the synagogue does better.
Could I interject here for just a second?
Absolutely,
I just got a
Alex.
phone call. I just got a phone call, so I'm gonna have to run. So it's not like I want to say this and then just run. But before I ran into TLC, it seems like the more I learned about Christianity, the more I devoured the Old Testament and New Testament, the more I listened to pastors and bishops and priests and all that stuff. My idea of what Christianity meant changed. So I got to listen to different denominations and I got to hear the perspectives. And I don't think we become less from different Christians' opinions. As long as you say, show me where in the Bible, and that's okay. Just show me where in the Bible. And yes, and I do want to hear, because that's the only way I can learn something that I don't know. But I do want it to, in the end, whatever your idea is, please show me in the scripture so that I can try to see from your point of view. But I don't disagree that we need to fight from someone that has whether they're Protestant or not, whether they're Catholic or not, whether they're Calvinistic or not. That to me, that doesn't matter. The thing that matters is this: is it biblical or not biblical, right? If it's not in the scripture, then show me how your story kind of reflects back to the scripture. But that's what I like about TLC, that there's different voices, different opinions, and everybody gets to say their piece. And that's actually, in my opinion, that's a good thing.
And at least we're all on topic with sola scriptura, right? Can I?
Completely
I was gonna say.
But I have to point out the 30 shekels you just got from Yoav.
Oh, is that shekels? I didn't know what it was. Bye, Alex. Good to see you. So
yes, that's Israeli shekels. You just got $8. So
yeah, but that's the amount that Joseph was betrayed for. So that's something to remember.
Symbolism happens.
Yeah, so 30 shekels of silver.